You think prison is a place for rehabilitation? They say women there get job training, reintegration support, but what's the truth? A young nurse was thrown into prison for a mistake that wasn't hers, and in a place where she expected only chains and loneliness, she uncovered a horrifying network where inmates were sold into slavery, disappeared without a trace, all protected by the very people in power. Her name was Rachel. And this is the story the authorities wanted buried forever. Rachel Monroe had never feared the dark until the iron gate slammed shut behind her. The cold clang echoed down the narrow corridor, fluorescent lights flickering overhead as if to remind her she had entered another world where light was a luxury and justice didn't exist. St. Haven Prison, the short-haired blonde guard announced flatly. Maximum security facility for level 5 female inmates. Welcome home, Miss Monroe. Rachel clenched her jaw and said nothing. She had survived military detention camps. She had saved comrades under enemy fire in Afghanistan. But as the handcuffs snapped around her wrists and the barbed wire fences rose beyond the front gate, she knew this was the real battlefield. St. Haven Women's Prison sat deep in the Tennessee mountains, whispered about among inmates as Silent Valley. No press, no lawyers, no one came or left without clearance, and no one ever talked about Door 12. Rachel didn't believe in rumors, but when her first cellmate, a girl named Angie, handed her a thin blanket and whispered, "If you want to stay alive, don't ever look at Door 12." A chill ran down Rachel's spine. "What's Door 12?" she asked. Angie shook her head, eyes wide with warning. "It's the last door at the end of C Wing. No one knows what's inside, just that anyone taken through it never comes back." Rachel couldn't sleep her first night at the facility. It wasn't the occasional screams that echoed down the hall, it was the silence that followed them. The whole cell block remained eerily quiet, as if hell had become routine. At exactly 2:13 a.m., a sound froze her blood, the click of a heavy metal lock turning down at the end of the corridor. Clack! Door 12 was opening, shuffling footsteps, the screech of metal dragging, then a strangled scream, cut off like a throat being crushed. Rachel held her breath, staring at the wall. The next morning, the cell next to hers was wiped clean. No name, no bedding, no trace that anyone had ever lived there, except for one thing at the door. A small smear of blood, still fresh. While scrubbing the floor later that day, a slip of paper fluttered to her feet, carried by the breeze. It read, "I know about Door 12. Meet me in the laundry room on Friday. Don't let anyone see this note." Rachel clenched the piece of paper in her hand as if it might vanish at any second. 3 days later, Friday came faster than she expected. She couldn't sleep, couldn't focus on anything. One question kept circling in her mind. Who sent the note? And why her? The laundry room at St. Haven was in the basement, a damp, dark place that reeked of chlorine. Inmates usually avoided it, especially without a supervisor present. But today, Rachel had volunteered for the night shift. She waited until the hallways were empty, then slipped quietly into the last laundry room at the end. The door shut behind her with a bone-deep click. Lights flickered. The machines rattled violently. Puddles of water spread across the grimy floor. "You came," a raspy voice said from the shadows. Rachel jumped and spun around. A small woman stepped out from behind the dryers, wearing a nameless gray prison coat. Her hair was a tangled mess, like it hadn't seen a comb in months. "You're the one who sent the note?" Rachel asked. The woman nodded, her eyes darting nervously as if someone or something was always listening. "My name is Maya." Rachel nodded, ready to move on, but paused. There was something about the woman that rooted her in place. A cold calmness, the way she didn't seem afraid of anyone. "How long have you been here?" Rachel asked. Maya smirked. 11 years. For document forgery, but no one in this place is here just for what's on paper. Rachel sat on the nearby bench. "What do you mean?" Maya looked straight into her eyes. "Have you ever wondered why no one's allowed out of their cells at night? Why every month someone supposedly commits suicide, or worse, just vanishes?" Rachel swallowed hard. She had heard rumors, but never imagined this. "There's a network," Maya continued, her voice dropping lower. "They take prisoners out at night, not to escape, to work, backbreaking jobs no one checks. Private companies hire the labor. The prison supplies it, a new kind of slavery." "You're serious?" Rachel whispered. "As serious as the pain in my back every morning." Maya paused, then leaned in, almost whispering now. You think they're killing themselves? You think they're missing? No, they're being sold. Rachel's chest tightened. Sold where? Maya squinted, as if weighing Rachel's courage. You're not ready to know everything. But if you want to survive here, don't trust the uniforms, and never ever sleep too deeply. The meal bell rang out. Maya stood up, grabbed her laundry basket, and walked away, leaving Rachel in the cold, damp air of the laundry room. Rachel watched her go, her mind reeling. She had come here thinking she'd fight to prove her innocence, but now she realized this wasn't just a fight for justice. It was a fight to stay alive. That night, under the dim lights of D Block, Rachel silently counted heads. 38, 39. She frowned. The 40th never came back. 3 days. No light, no water, no voices. Just the steady drip from a rusted pipe above the solitary cell. And Rachel's ragged, cracked breathing, clinging to the edge between sanity and delirium. She didn't know exactly why she'd been thrown in, but she knew enough. It was after the conversation with Maya, and this was the warning shot. When the solitary door finally opened, blinding white light made Rachel squint. A figure stepped in, yanked her up with one hand like she weighed nothing. Before she could speak, they dropped her onto the freezing floor of a different wing, Unit G. Scrawled in red ink across the rusted steel door, Isolation Unit, Violent Psych Disorders. Screams echoed from the cells. One woman shouted for her mother, another giggled uncontrollably, lost in a haze. Rachel stood frozen. She had been placed between two inmates who once murdered a cellmate over a piece of candy. Everything was clear now. They wanted her silent. The next day, when she was assigned to community duty, cleaning the old archive wing, she encountered Collins, the towering correctional officer with platinum blonde hair and a voice like a razor blade. Listen up, Rachel. Collins planted her hands on her hips, tapping her baton against her palm. I don't care if you're innocent, but if you keep poking around asking questions you shouldn't, you'll leave here in a body bag. Got it? Rachel didn't dare look her in the eye. She just nodded. Smart girl, Collins smirked, then walked off. In a wave of desperation, Rachel searched for a way out. She found an abandoned metal cabinet filled with old boxes, dusty files, and faded photographs. She didn't know why she started digging, maybe instinct. Then she saw it, an old, yellowed photo taken in the prison yard. In it, a curly-haired woman in her 30s stood next to a younger girl in a short skirt and red hoodie, smiling brightly, her arms slung casually over the inmate's shoulder. Rachel's breath caught. The inmate was Lena Brooks, the woman who had committed suicide 2 months ago. And the girl in the red hoodie, Rachel had seen her before. It was the daughter of Warden Jenkins. No mistake. Rachel had seen her during last month's family visitation, escorted by 2 guards, referred to as Miss Ivy. A chill crept down Rachel's spine. If Lena Brooks had disappeared and had once been standing beside the warden's daughter, what really happened? Rachel tucked the photo into her waistband and whispered to herself, they're not just selling people, they're protecting something much bigger. 7 years, Maya said, her sunken eyes reflecting both exhaustion and resolve. I've been preparing for 7 years, just waiting for the right moment. Rachel sat quietly on the rusted steel bed in the infirmary, where Maya worked as a prison nurse's aide. Ever since she discovered the photo of Lena Brooks standing next to the warden's daughter, she knew pretending to be clueless would get her killed. What are you planning to do? Rachel whispered. Maya glanced around, then peeled back the infirmary mattress. Underneath was a hand-drawn map in charcoal pencil, detailed down to the camera angles and shift change schedules. I have everything. The rotation charts, the emergency exit that's not alarmed, the route through the water treatment system, but I'm still missing one thing. The passcode? Rachel guessed. Maya nodded. The electronic lock system in the basement. It changes every month. Only management-level staff know it. Rachel went silent. She wasn't a hacker. She was just a single mom who'd been set up. You had a boyfriend in IT, didn't you? Maya asked suddenly. He used to send you encrypted letters. I saw one once. Rachel flinched. It was the letter Josh had sent her when she first got locked up, written in a code only the two of them understood. She gave a small nod. Then we have a chance, Maya said firmly. I'll get you out, but you have to decide now. Play or die. Rachel hesitated. Part of her wanted to keep her head down and wait out the sentence. But that hope shattered the next morning when she witnessed something horrifying. Jenna, the 19-year-old inmate who once told Rachel she wanted to be a chef after prison, was dragged down the hallway, her head limp, a trail of blood marking her path. Word was she tried to hide a piece of paper with a passcode. Now she was completely broken, nonverbal, eyes blank. Rachel couldn't stay silent any longer. That night, in the infirmary, Rachel nodded to Maya. "I'm in." But Maya just looked at her and sighed. "There's something you need to know. I couldn't keep it a secret any longer." Rachel frowned. Maya hesitated. "I was the one who gave them your name." The room seemed to freeze. Rachel shot to her feet, her palms sweating. "What? I didn't think they'd pick you. I just submitted a list of easily controlled inmates to keep my cover, but they picked you and transferred you here." Maya looked down. "I betrayed you, but I want to make it right by getting you out." Rachel was speechless. Should she hate her, rage at her, or seize the one shot at survival? Maya slid the map toward Rachel and whispered, "The door opens for 8 minutes. A system glitch during the shift change. One shot. After that, it's either freedom or an unmarked grave." It was raining. The patter on the tin roof of the storage shed echoed like a ticking clock. Each minute, each second, Rachel could hear the frantic pounding of her own heart, fearful, anxious, and clinging to a fragile hope. "Now," Maya whispered. Silently, they slipped through the narrow path behind the shed, where, according to the map, an old tunnel once connected to the tech wing before it was abandoned. The tunnel door would only stay open for 8 minutes, a system glitch Maya had discovered after 7 years of quiet observation. Rachel pushed the heavy steel door. Every screech of the hinges grated on her nerves like claws. She shut her eyes, praying no one heard it. "Just a few more steps to the tunnel. Go," Maya said firmly. "But then don't move." The shout ripped through the darkness. A flashlight beam hit them square in the eyes. 3 figures, 2 guards, one wearing a black mask, had been waiting. The trap had been set all along. "Run!" Maya yelled, shoving Rachel toward the tunnel. A gunshot rang out, sharp and deafening. Maya was hit in the stomach. She collapsed. "Maya!" Rachel turned back, but Maya gritted her teeth and shoved something small into her hand, wrapped in medical gauze, a USB drive. "Listen," Maya whispered, blood spilling from the corner of her mouth. "This has the proof. Videos, lists, testimonies, names, Warden Jenkins, Officer Collins, and the company behind the forced labor." Rachel froze. "Give this to someone who knows how to fight. Someone out there," Maya gasped. "I used to be an informant, but now I can't let you die like I will." Another gunshot rang out. Maya collapsed. Rachel turned and ran, tears mixing with the rain. She dove into the tunnel, slipped, fell, then scrambled back up. Behind her, footsteps closing in. Ahead, pure darkness. But her hand gripped the USB tight, the only thing left of Maya, and their last shot at justice. The steel door at the end of the tunnel was slowly lowering on a timer. She lunged forward, just in time. The door slammed shut behind her. Screams were silenced by cold, thick steel. Rachel collapsed onto the ground, trembling, soaked to the bone, but still clutching the evidence in her hand. In front of her, forest. Behind her, hell. And between those two shadows, one flicker of hope. Rachel never saw the light outside again. She was caught just hours after the failed escape. No trial, no paperwork, not a single explanation. Just a hard blow to the head, and then darkness. When she woke up, she was strapped to a freezing metal gurney. Around her were rough concrete walls and a single steel door marked 12. Door 12. The name was a whispered nightmare in the prison. No one who ever entered that room came back. It wasn't solitary. It was disappearance. A cold male voice echoed through a speaker on the wall. "Stubborn girl. Now that you're here, get ready to work for our research division." Rachel thrashed, screamed, but it was useless. A man in a white lab coat entered, injected her with something that made her mind spin. Hours later, or maybe days, Rachel couldn't tell, she was dumped into another large room. Inside were 8 other women. Their hair was falling out, their prison uniforms tattered, their eyes vacant. "Welcome to the medical recovery unit," one whispered, her voice raspy. "We're the lab rats." Rachel stumbled back, stunned. This is real?" A white woman in her 50s stared at her, eyes sharp enough to cut through the fog in Rachel's mind. "You're Rachel Monroe, aren't you?" Rachel blinked. Who are you?" The woman stepped closer. Though frail and thin, the aura she carried made the entire room hold its breath. "I'm Judge Margaret Lewis," she said. "I once presided over your case, but I never sentenced you. I refused to sign that verdict." Rachel stepped back. "No, that they said you disappeared. Because I refused to authorize the legalization of this experimental project," Margaret said. "And for that, I became test subject 001. Silence fell over the room. Rachel felt a chill crawl down her spine. Everything she thought she knew was just the surface. Maya had been right. This wasn't just a prison camp. It was a machine that devoured people, turning them into commodities for underground medicine and political power. Then, does anyone out there know about this place? Rachel asked, her voice trembling. Margaret pointed to Rachel's jacket pocket. "What you're carrying, that USB, it might be the last hope, but you have to survive to get it out." Rachel clutched the USB hidden beneath her shirt. She couldn't die. Not now. Not while the truth was still buried beneath door 12. They thought Rachel was just a victim, but they forgot she used to be a senior medical assistant at the Center for Disease Control. They forgot she understood the human immune system, sterilization protocols, and the kinds of substances that, in the wrong dosage, could turn a doctor into a patient. From the moment she was locked inside door 12, Rachel began to observe. The fake doctors who came in to inject, to draw blood, using shared equipment between inmates. She noticed a vulnerability. The very people running the place were exposing themselves. One day, while pretending to have a fever, Rachel managed to hide a vial of medication in her clothes, an old-generation antiviral with severe side effects if misused. Bit by bit, she gathered cotton swabs, used syringes, expired meds, and created a mild airborne mixture that could cause high fever, vomiting, and dizziness in clusters. A week later, the light infection began to spread throughout the facility. The doctors panicked. The entire block was placed under lockdown. An emergency report was sent out with the headline, "Suspected mutated virus among experimental prisoners. Urgent medical response required." Rachel smiled as the loudspeaker blared, "Emergency vehicles en route. All inmates are to be temporarily transferred to the safe zone." Now was the time to act. That night, she took a dose of heart rate suppressant, just enough to make her vitals appear flatlined. A doctor confirmed it and logged her death. Rachel was placed in a body bag, loaded onto a stretcher, and wheeled out with the others who had died from infection. She kept her breath shallow, lying still in the suffocating darkness of the nylon bag. The wheels rolled past the camp gates. She was out. As the ambulance pulled away, Rachel quietly unzipped the bag just enough to lift her head and take her first breath of night air in months. Her heart pounded, but her eyes were cold. She was out. But it wasn't over. When Rachel glanced out the window, she suddenly recognized the driver. It was Officer Collins, the one who had once warned her she'd leave in a body bag. Collins glanced at the rearview mirror, eyes gleaming with menace. "You thought getting out was the end, Monroe?" Collins's voice rang out, cold as metal striking stone. The ambulance kept rolling through the night, but Rachel knew. It wasn't heading to a hospital. She slowly sat up from the body bag, blood rushing to her temples. The doors were locked. Collins had one hand on the wheel, the other resting casually on the Glock holstered at his side. "You know, we've been watching you since Maya died. Thought you'd break faster," Collins said with a dry chuckle. "But here we are, having this little private chat." Rachel glanced around. No GPS, no radio. This vehicle had been modified, clearly not part of any official dispatch. "Where are you taking me?" she asked, her voice hoarse but steady. "To the place all the missing women go. You'll be joining them," Collins narrowed his eyes. "But before I erase everything, I'm going to find that USB." Rachel's fingers tightened around the inside of her shirt where she'd sewn the USB into the lining. But she gave no reaction, her lips pressed together, mind racing. Suddenly, a pothole. The van jolted hard. Collins lost control for just a few seconds. That was all Rachel needed. She lunged forward, yanked the pin from the oxygen tank mounted to the wall, and slammed it into the steering wheel. The van swerved off the road, crashed through an iron fence, and came to a shuddering stop. Collins was dazed, but still conscious enough to reach for her gun. "You stupid lit!" Thwack! Rachel drove an empty insulin syringe into Collins's neck. No meds, but enough force to stagger her. Rachel wrestled the gun free and kicked Collins out onto the pavement. I won't let you erase me from this world. But she didn't pull the trigger. Instead, she tied Collins up with IV tubing, shoved her into the back seat, and drove off toward the city. Twist. When she reached the first residential neighborhood and banged on a door for help, the person who answered was the daughter of Judge Franklin, the very woman Rachel had seen imprisoned in the lab. The girl froze as Rachel held up a photo of her mother, still alive. "Do you want to save her?" Rachel asked. "Then listen closely. We're about to light up something bigger than you can imagine." A week after escaping, Rachel sat across from Alyssa Green, a renowned human rights lawyer who had helped dozens of veterans expose military abuse. A few strands of gray streaked her hair, but her eyes were sharp as knives. Alyssa studied Rachel as if she'd known her for years. Rachel placed the USB on the table, her hands trembling with tension. "You might be my last chance," she whispered. Alyssa said nothing, just plugged the device into her laptop. The screen flickered to life with videos, footage of forced labor at night, lists of missing persons, and internal documents signed by the prison warden. Then, the final clip, a confession from Maya herself, recorded before she sacrificed herself. "I'm Maya Thomas. If someone's watching this, I'm probably dead. But at least I left something behind. The women in St. Haven aren't criminals. They're victims. And I was once a link in that system. I ask for forgiveness with my own life." Alyssa looked up. "Do you know what you just ignited?" Rachel nodded, choking back tears. "I just don't want Maya's death to be meaningless." The investigation was launched that very month. Thanks to Alyssa's extensive connections and the weight of Rachel's testimony, the scandal at St. Haven Women's Prison quickly spread nationwide. News exploded. CNN, NBC, even the New York Times ran bold headlines. Forced labor, illegal drug testing, death cover-ups, the horrifying truth at St. Haven Women's Prison. At a congressional hearing, Rachel appeared as the key witness. She recounted everything, from her first meeting with Maya to being locked in door 12, to the escape plan and what happened afterward. Dozens of guards were arrested. The prison warden, Daniel Pratt, was charged with 14 counts. Private companies behind the drug trials faced sweeping investigations. 3 months later, as the TV lights dimmed for the final time, the anchor solemnly announced the first whistleblower, Maya Thomas, sacrificed her life to bring the truth to light. Her name will be recorded in the National Human Rights Commission archives. And Rachel? She didn't apply for asylum or seek leniency, but the state government voluntarily declared her eligible for special clemency on the condition she joined a campaign to raise human rights awareness within the prison system. On the day of her release, Rachel stood at the prison gates, sunlight casting shadows on her weathered but hopeful face. She whispered to herself, "We survived, and the truth at last has won." One autumn morning, leaves blanketed the small street in a suburb of Atlanta, Georgia. Rachel stood before an old house with a moss-covered tile roof and a wooden fence faded by time. In her hands was a bouquet of white lilies. The door opened. A middle-aged woman in a nurse's uniform stepped out, her eyes wary. "Who are you looking for?" she asked, her voice soft but weary. Rachel removed her sunglasses, hesitating briefly. I'm a friend of Maya Thomas. I was in the same camp with her." The woman went silent, covering her mouth with her hand. "Oh my God, my mother?" Rachel lowered her head, clutching the bouquet tighter. "She sacrificed herself to save me and hundreds of others." An hour later, the two stood silently before an unmarked grave deep within the grounds behind a small church. "We don't have the remains," Maya's daughter choked. "They only sent a letter of apology and a few personal belongings." Rachel placed the bouquet down, her hand gently brushing the unnamed white tombstone. Her name will not remain unknown forever. She took from her coat pocket a certified posthumous award, issued by the National Human Rights Commission, detailing Maya Thomas's role in exposing the prisoner abuse system. Another copy, she said, would be engraved on a new headstone currently being made. "Her daughter deserves to know her mother was a hero," Rachel said, eyes brimming with tears. The following week, at a small ceremony streamed nationwide, Maya's name was officially added to the Guardians of Justice list, alongside great figures who fought corruption and abuse of power. Rachel did not speak. She sat quietly in the back row, watching the candles flicker in the hands of those who had once been victims. Inside her, A whisper echoed, "Keep your mouth shut if you don't want to end up in a body bag." But today, that voice was silenced, and the truth had spoken. At day's end, Rachel returned to her modest new apartment near the sea. She opened her laptop and typed the first lines of a manuscript. The title? The Bouquet on the Nameless Grave, the truth about St. Haven Prison and the woman who changed history. She knew she was no longer a prisoner. She was a survivor, and above all, the storyteller of a forgotten hero.